Hey there, ghosties. Welcome to episode 88 of the Ghost Lights podcast. Today's guest is Billie McBride. She was there for one of my first auditions, and we captured a little bit of that embarrassing story. We talked about her vision to become an actress, the path that took her down, and the regretless culmination of all that to this moment, and still so much more to come. Please subscribe and tell your friends today. Now it's time for War by the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble. Dan, you know what to do. Welcome to the podcast. This is the Ghost Lights podcast, episode 88.
Wow.
And here you are.
My age.
Get out of town.
No.
It's like, you don't look a day over 40.
Very sweet.
No. I'm a nice guy. What can I say? Thank you so much for being here. It's been a while. We've been trying to orchestrate this, and then I always do this really cool thing where I'll ask somebody, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm busy that week." I'm like, "All right, no worries. We'll get back in touch." And then I forget for 3 months. And then 3 months turns into a year, and here we are.
Here we are.
Thank you so much for being here with us. How are things? What's new? You just closed a show here, right?
Yes. Same time next year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Lauren Bauman and Eric Mather. Cherry Creek Theater. It was great. It's very, very hard to do theater during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and especially doing a show where it's two people crawling all over each other, having an affair. And we had the Omicron, was it? Omicron.
Yeah.
That everybody was getting, even if you happened to just walk by a doorway. So it gave us some problems, but both of them were such pros that
Nice.
and they were fun to work with.
Good. Well, I hope it was at the very least a successful run, in your opinion.
I think it was.
That's great. Nice. Do you have anything else lined up on the docket?
Right now, I am directing 22 children in Greece. My third time directing kids in Greece. It is Center Stage. That's in Louisville. And we cast it and started in March, and we have a very easy schedule, only 9 hours a week.
That's pretty damn good.
But it's going well. We don't really open it until the second week. I think it's about the second week of May.
Okay.
So we have plenty of time, and it's the high school version of it that's shorter,
Well, that's
where
good.
Rizzo doesn't get pregnant.
But that's the best part.
I know it has the best song, but
Yeah. No.
they're 11, 12, and 13, so,
The only thing I remember about Greece is that the car drives away into the sky at the end. Can you manufacture that? Do you have the budget for
listen,
it?
I'm lucky to manufacture a set
Oh, okay. All right.
with 22 kids.
Oh, God. That's way too many kids. I was a teacher. And, when all of them come out of the classroom at once to, go to the lunchroom, I'm sweating bullets. There's too many of you. You're all screaming and touching each other. I don't like this. Really good thing that we let them wear masks, because they did a great bang-up job of staying safe. But 22 kids
Well,
for
that's
one
good.
show is a lot.
Yeah. Well, when I used to do them at the JCC, and I did something like 15 years, and we'd have 40.
Gosh. When you have to, tackle a show with that many pieces, how does that change the way you approach the process? Are you looking at, are you just putting out extras, people that are just in the background filling in, or
The first thing you do is you give them vodka
okay,
around 9 o'clock in the morning, and then
great.
they're very docile, and you can just move them around.
nice.
No.
Oh,
Seriously. No, a lot of the kids that we used to get here had started when they were before they were teens. They would start down in the Plus Theater. And then at the age of 11, they were allowed to come up and audition for the bigger stuff. But a lot of them had already started voice lessons and were dancers, and some were really good actors already. And So it was a treat. Casting, the day of casting was always hard because everyone wanted to be the lead.
Oh yeah.
But for the most part, it was a great deal of fun. 72 hours. I counted up once. From the day we walked in, it was exactly 72 hours later, we were sitting in there, and the very first performance was happening. And we didn't do the short versions. We always did the long versions.
Wow.
I still remember doing A Man of La Mancha, and it was so good. I had great choreographer, great musical directors. Steve Wilson always brought in really good people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Big ups to Steve. We got to get him on the pod, Dan.
Yeah. And he'll talk to you about the center stage where he is now the, I think, artistic producing manager or something.
Oh, sweet.
There, yeah.
So is that like the connection that brought you back up
Yeah.
there? That's great. That's great. I still think, I mean, just the scope of managing so many people for a show like any one of those shows, that's quite an undertaking. And the fact that you did that for how many years?
15. It was
15,
close to 15 years, yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, to your point, we definitely had 20-something chorus members. So yes, it was your regular cast. Sometimes they'd be double cast if there was too good, and they'd trade off. But for the most part, a regular cast, and then okay, the 3 people over here are now 12 people over here, and let's just move you around in large groups. And some of the younger kids, they only got on when there was a big dance number, and they got one line to yell out in the group scene, and they had to earn their way up.
Oh gosh!
By 9th grade, they could be getting some good roles.
Is there any particular kid you want to take the time out right now and tell them off?
No, actually, no. We had.
Listen here, Brenda.
we really had good kids.
Good.
There were kids who had obvious difficulties, problems of some kind, but theater. That's what it is about the arts and theater. Is that when they become somebody else up there, and you let them be that somebody else. They forget all that stuff that keeps them locked in their bedroom, not wanting to come out. I learned a lot from these kids, and I think they learned a lot from all of us who worked with them.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you don't harbor any ill will toward.
No, I love kids.
Okay, good. Yeah, me, not so much. So anyway, moving right along. Says the guy with the troubled past. Anyway, Billie.
Yes.
Theater. Mm-hmm. How did it happen to you?
Well, I grew up in a tiny little town in the Midwest called Leroy, Illinois. And one morning, and this is all very true, one morning I was lying in bed, 9 years old. Mm-hmm. I'd never seen a play. We had a movie theater in town, but we saw cartoons. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a TV yet. My dad waited quite a while before he got one. And but for some reason, I literally got out. I sat up and thought, I want to be an actress. Now, I'm not sure I knew exactly what I was thinking or talking about, but that was the decision I made. So I went out to my mother, and I said, I decided what I want to be when I grow up. And she said, what? And I said, an actress. And Mom said, well, actresses have to be really pretty and very talented. And I knew I wasn't really pretty. I had buck teeth, and she'd cut my hair in a bowl haircut and buggy eyes. So I knew that might be a problem. And talent, I could look up. I could look that up and figure out what that was that I had to have. And so I didn't say anything back to her. I didn't say, oh, well, I guess I won't do that. I just walked away, and I thought, well, I'm not going to tell anybody. So that is pretty much what I wanted to do from the age of 9 until, well, we're sitting here right now. And so there were no classes to go to, no voice classes, there were no things like the JCC, there was no acting classes, there was nothing like that. So I just kind of watched other people as I got a little bit older. I finally got into high school and got into a play. And that really, of course, the minute you hear people laugh, that's what you want to do always. And I was a musician. I was a pianist and I was a French hornist. And I had already been accepted to college to go to be a piano major and a French horn minor, and obviously be a teacher for the rest of my life. And the guidance counselor at the high school called me up and said, what are your plans? And I said, well, I've already been accepted at Illinois State University, and I'm going to be a music major. And she said, you don't want to do that. And I barely knew this woman. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, I've watched you over these last 4 years, and every time they ask you to get out of your seat, put the French horn down, and go stand at the mic to narrate something, then you come alive. Then I see exactly what you belong doing.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I don't know what to do. And she said, well, there's the other university, and they have a really great theater department. I said, I know, but they won't give me a scholarship. I have no experience. I mean, no experience except 2 little plays. And she said, if I were you, I would do it. I would try to do it. So I went in, and I auditioned in front of all the upperclassmen at this college, and so many people. And I could tell they were laughing. I did 5 characters from the play Harvey, and I played each and every one of them. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. And the head of the theater department, after they all stopped giggling, handed me a monologue from Liz Estrada. And he said, go out and work on this and then come back in. And so I went out and I read through it. I didn't know there was Greek theater. I didn't know anything. Yeah. So I worked on it, and I came back in, and I did the monologue, and he stopped and gave me some direction, and I did it again. And then they said thank you, and I went back and thought, thank God I've got a scholarship to become a music major, because even I knew at the time that I was going to be in trouble. But they contacted me not long after that.
Was your fly down too?
No.
Okay.
If it had been, I probably would have gotten a bigger scholarship. Because they did. They let me in. Yeah. They gave me a very little itty-bitty scholarship, and I finally asked the head of the department one day, what were you thinking? And he said, well, it was when you did the monologue, that you read that monologue, that we saw something and decided it was worth bringing you in to see what you were going to be capable of doing. Yeah. And so here I am now, still doing it after all those years. So that's how I started and got into theater. Yeah.
Once you got accepted in, you started doing the work. How big did this world get to you then?
Well, it got big because of the people that were there. There were so many amazing human beings in that 4 years that I was there. One of them has the guys I went to school with, Richard Jenkins, of course, been nominated for a couple of Academy Awards and does tons of film. And he was, he was just this wonderful, and he still is, this wonderful, sweet guy. But all the things I could learn from each and every one of those people who ended up on Broadway, people who ended up with TV shows, the majority of them ended up going on and becoming pretty successful.
Wow.
So it opened up theater to me. I didn't know anything about it, really, and so it kind of opened it all up to me.
Do you think that you had an innate talent, or was that something that you started then crafting and working on once you started understanding that, oh no, there's classes and things to learn? And like, as you talked about having this kind of raw green background at this audition, and just kind of, I mean, for lack of a better metaphor, just throwing something at the wall and hoping something stuck. Yeah. Like, what were some of like I said, did you feel like, oh no, this has always been here? Or did you have to like work and?
I've always had a great imagination, and I've always kind of lived in my head. And I will say that in high school, one of our actually, which got me the first part in the first play I did, is our English teacher asked us to write a comedy monologue. Okay. And everybody wrote them. And I wrote one about 2 guys breaking into a nursing home to not realizing that's what they were doing. And we all had to get up in front of the class and do them, and I think I was one of the last people to get up in front of the class to do mine, and everybody laughed a lot, and I thought, this is great. So the teacher liked it so much, she sent me around to all the classes. She called ahead to the teachers and said, I'm sending her in to do this. You guys have got to hear this crazy imagination this little girl has. And so I think it was in there that I don't think I would have even thought to do that, had somewhere in a past life. But it's all I wanted to do. I never wavered, ever. And the funny part about going to the college I did is they didn't teach acting. You learned it by doing it, and they taught pretty much everything else, but that's one thing they didn't. We got one improv class, about 3 or 4 weeks of an improv class. They brought a man in from New York, and he worked with us quite a bit on it. But I really learned how to do it. My greatest talent in college was I knew what wasn't good, and I knew what was good. So I watched both. I wanted to see who was good and why they were that good and take it apart. And then when I would audition, I would work really hard on trying to do the good things as opposed to the things that I knew really weren't workable.
When you say you had that ability to clock what felt functional and what didn't, how did you delineate between the two?
You know, I have no idea. It was one of those things where I knew, it was later on, but I would look at somebody the way they walked across the stage and I would think, that's not right. I would look at somebody as they would begin a scene, and I would think, oh my gosh, that's incredible. I'm actually believing this. I'm actually caught up in it. And so I think that's what it was. I actually never studied acting until I was in New York City, and I'd been there for maybe, 10 years. And somebody said to me, you really should have an acting class on your resume, because that's a big deal in New York for people to do. So somebody recommended a guy named Alberto Torres, who was a casting director, but also a very good acting teacher. And I took 3 months from him. And I learned an enormous amount about what I was doing wrong, and where I needed to kind of let go.
How young are you when you were in New York and learning that?
When I moved to New York straight out of a couple of years after I got out of college, and I was 21 maybe. Okay, I think I was about 21, and I was lucky. I had my assistantship, and the reason I got some money from college was to do properties. And I loved artwork, and I loved doing all sorts of things and creating things. And we did Marat Sade, and I remember creating the severed heads and all the various things that we did. And so I got a job out of college working at the Studio Arena Theater in Buffalo, New York, running the properties department. Okay. Not what I wanted to do, but at least I was close to a theater.
Foot in the door.
They brought in all these actors as they wanted to do from New York, and I met several of them, and one of them said, when you come to New York, I will put you up. And until you can find a place to live, until you can get started. So it was about a year and a half later that I contacted that actress and said, decided to do it. And she said, fine, because she was in and out a lot. Her fiancé was somewhere else. And so she was in and out a lot of the apartment, and I was able to look after her animals. So I got on a bus and took a bus all the way from Illinois to New York City and got off at Port Authority and walked to her apartment, which was all the way over on First Avenue, and so I had somebody who told me, this is something you should try to do. This is something you should try to do to get me kind of started. Yeah. And the luckiest thing for me was that I was there alone one day, and the phone rang, and it was a woman said, "Is Joan there?" And I said, "No." can I take a message? And she said, well, who are you? And I said, well, I'm a friend of hers, and I'm staying here, and young actress trying to get going in the theater here. And she said, what do you look like? And I said, at the time I had long red hair, and I said my hair's red and long, and I have blue eyes, and I'm 5'3", and I said fairly thin. And she said, would you do me a favor? And I said, what? And she said, would you come in to CBS and do some modeling work for us, because we're putting together something and we need a model with that exact kind of coloring. And if you do this for me, I'll make sure you get a bunch of work on the shows. And so I know.
Jesus.
And so I went in, and they paid me, at the time, they paid me $50 an hour to sit in a room and be photographed and videoed, constant videoing.
You have those photos, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, no.
No, and I was fully clothed. And she was good
Keep
to
it
her
clean,
word. She got me a bunch of work on there, so
Yeah.
I never. I was never a horrible struggle. Then my friend got me, because of the soap opera, they got me into a place called the Rehearsal Club, which is no longer there, but it was like Stage Door. Remember Stage Door, the movie, where all the girls live in New York City, and they live in this big house, and they all have rooms and a place to eat. And Katharine Hepburn did the film, but that's what it was. It was on 53rd Street and between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue, a big old brownstone right down the street from the Modern Art, MoMA, and $40 a week plus 2 meals, breakfast and dinner, and you had a room and a bathroom. And downstairs was a rehearsal studio, so you could go down there. And because I played piano, I'd go down, and I would, if girls had singing auditions, I'd go down and play for them, or I'd go with them at times. And so my living conditions were taken care of, and I was making a decent amount of money. I got a job as a hat check girl at the Copacabana. The old Copacabana, run by the boys.
Yeah, I believe there's quite the iconic scene that takes there. Yeah,
but I loved New York. I loved it. Even though I came from a little town in Illinois, it always felt like home to me. And I kind of grew up there. That's where I still struggled because I didn't have experience or the wherewithal, and very shy. Yeah. And of course, it was before cell phones. It was before computers. You had to have answering machines, and before that, when I first got there, you had to have a service. You paid a service, and you called them. You had to carry quarters around. That's when there were places you could make phone calls on the street. But I think it's probably the luckiest, best thing that ever happened to me.
It sounds amazing. I mean, I've never heard of a place like that for professionals. You talk about this house where you're housing.
It was all girls, 42 of us.
Yeah,
Carol
all
Burnett.
working. Carol Burnett.
She started there, and Sandy Duncan started there. Blythe Danner. There's 2 or 3 other gals whose names I don't remember, and that's where they got their start. And a lot of them that were in there were, somebody would open the front door and yell, they're seeing people at the Morosco. And they need this and this and this and this and this. And you'd hear people grabbing pictures and down the stairs, heading for the Morosco backstage to either sing or read for somebody, or at least just get interviewed. So It was a wonderful time to be in New York.
Yeah. We need art communities like that. We need to fund those. I feel like
it's no longer, because it was 53rd Street, between 5th Avenue, and they tore it down. But the girls that had been there for years got together, and there is an organization, and they are looking to buy a place where they can start helping young actresses again.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, nice.
Yeah.
You talked specifically about when you started working with this Alberto Torres, and he started helping you see what you weren't quite accomplishing at that stage yet. does that send you for a loop, like a tailspin, or does that just make you work harder?
Oh, no, it made me work harder. It made me realize maybe that's why this doesn't work, and maybe that's why I'm not getting work.
Yeah.
One of the biggest problems that I had was I've always sounded like this, but I looked 17. And so it was hard for me to go in for an ingenue because I didn't sound like what people thought ingenues were supposed to sound like. And I actually ended up getting a national tour because I looked young and sounded older. So, but that had always been a little bit of a difficulty because at the time, they typed. You went you walked across the Broadway stage, you'd stand on the stage, and they would literally walk down the line, and they would say, okay, you stay, you stay, you stay, you stay, and the rest of you thanks. And you'd been there for 5 hours standing in line waiting to get in just to be told thanks. Carol Burnett, though, I have to tell you this wonderful story. When she was at the rehearsal club, and a bunch of girls got together, and they knew about this typing, and they were all having problems with it. They all bought one red dress that fit them all, that could, be tied in the back or whatever, so it would fit everywhere. If anybody had a big audition like that, they got to wear the dress, and always the person would say, "Oh, and you."
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
red.
Because that people in New York City dressing in charcoal gray and black, and so seeing a bright color like that immediately brings you. Then they look at you. So, yeah, it was quite a time.
Yeah, when you're, I'm struggling with this. You're struggling to accomplish something in your career, and you have this thing that you can't help. Are they like training your voice? Are they trying to train you out of that, or
no? I never really wanted it
Good.
to. I got voiceovers there.
Okay.
No, it wasn't anything anyone thought about.
Okay.
And nor did I give any thought to it whatsoever. That's what I'd always sounded like. And a great many people liked my voice. It just not for stage work.
Okay.
But I started to get work, and I did summer stock, and I did dinner theater, and then when I was in college, I took it all very seriously.
Yeah.
I learned how to be a lighting designer. I really found all that so fascinating and so very dramatic. And I learned how to, of course, I did props. And so I was the head of the crews for building sets. I didn't do costumes because there were just a bunch of girls down there sewing. I'd rather hang with the guys with a buzzsaw. So I knew how to do all of those things. So which was lucky for me because I ended up getting stage management jobs in New York.
Yeah.
And which then began to lead to getting work there as an actor. So yeah, I've always called myself a backdoor actress. I slipped in through the back door, but I refused to leave.
Yeah.
And I would walk up this staircase, and I'd walk up that staircase until I've reached that point of where I wanted to be, and then I was perfectly happy.
I love hearing that your background in all these other fields that make performance possible, or at least as rich of an experience as it can be.
Yeah.
Is what, like, in certain cases, kept you in the building once you got inside.
Yeah.
To have that, it speaks to, like, the quality of the work you were doing and the quality of person that you were. Because I mean, there's a line between those two things. Being a good person and the work that you can do. Some people can tolerate you if you're really good at your job for so long, and then there's other people who will make excuses for the lack of quality in the work if you're a quality person. So to have both of those things in your back pocket, part of your training, I don't know. I feel like that's something that we used to do. give students all of these tools, and now it's more specialized.
Yeah.
And we're going to focus
When we don't take it away from them. I mean,
Yeah.
So much of art is being taken away from kids because people don't think that it's nearly as necessary as getting that kid out on a soccer field or basketball or football. And it's so unbelievably important. The difference between young people that I've worked with who go on in life doing whatever, any number of things, whether it's the theater or whether they just go on, they will always tell me later, being in the theater, being a part of a group like that, and learning as much as we learned has really set me up for anything I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet we keep taking it away from our children.
Why do you think that is? Fix it for me.
Fix it for you.
Because I totally agree with you.
I wish I could.
Yeah.
I wish I could. Yeah.
What's been really cool about what you just said there is, so the direct experience of you being in this house with 30 other people, give or take the week, that are all working in something in the artistic field, there's a built-in community to that. But then there's this other community that comes from learning all these different tasks and having a hand in the building of a project together that bonds people together. And then through that, they're finding their voice. You talked about how earlier when I was so hoping he would pick out a child for the past, because I don't know why I started out on a vindictive note for fictional children. But you talked about how you could get them comfortable and keep them happy by giving them the opportunity to experience somebody else.
To be somebody else.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that most actors, that's an awful lot of actors aren't really secure in their own skin and secure in being who they are. And so we want to be somebody else. And we don't even know that's why we want to do this. But if you're somebody who's filled with anger, but you've been taught that that's not the right thing, and you get a role where you get to scream your lungs out on stage, it is therapeutic. You can't find a psychiatrist who's going to give you as good of advice as being able to play a character that releases you from that stress and the tension, and you can be brave on stage because that's what you're playing. Loving. You can discover so many things about the potential of yourself by creating different people.
Yeah, you learn what you talked about, being brave. You learn what that feels like in certain cases by being the hero,
by being the brave person.
Yeah, and that's awesome. You transition out of New York when? And is that you go straight to Colorado?
No. I left New York, went to New Hampshire.
Oh.
The AIDS epidemic had really taken a lot out of me and a lot of the people in the city. And I was doing Torch Song Trilogy at the time of it hitting really, really bad in the theater community. And doing a show like Torch Song Trilogy, we were open to have cases of it. And I'd been to more memorial services, and I'd watched so many boys die, and I just didn't think I could bear any of it anymore. So I decided to move to New Hampshire, and I was still relatively young. I don't know what I really thought I was going to do, but and I was up there for 3 years, and it just was not the right place for me. You can't spend 20 years in New York City and then go to a place that's primarily all white. And I said, there's nothing for me here. I did do several really good theater things, and was able to continue creating things. But then one day I said to friends, I don't know what to do. And they said, we're going to Colorado. And we got these incredibly cheap tickets. And you could probably, and they still have them. So get one of those tickets and come out with us. And we'll all talk about it and you figure out what you want to do. So on the way, as I was thinking about it, I got my ticket and I went there. And we went to the airport and got on the plane. And I'm thinking, I should just move to Colorado. I don't know what, people ask me why I moved here. I still don't know why. Because I still don't know
You haven't decided.
where
You're
my
not 100%
brain
sold
was.
on Colorado yet?
No, I'm very,
Okay.
very sold. But I did. That's what I did. Is I rented a car, and they went on up into the mountains to Snowmass, and I rented a car, and I found an apartment. And then I went up and joined them and had a great time and relaxed. And all of a sudden felt good again. And then flew home and packed up everything in New Hampshire and rented a U-Haul, not a U-Haul, but a big truck. Came and picked everything up, and I got in my car and drove to Colorado, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. Where did you start working theatrically when you got settled
I
in?
could not get arrested in this place. Film and television. I got a lot of film and a lot of TV. I had a great agent, Patty Kingsbaker, and she got me work that I probably shouldn't have gotten because I was, it was for a guy, but she would talk him into seeing me, and then I'd end up getting that male judge part as a female. And she did a lot of stuff. But the only really union theaters in town were Arvada and the Denver Center. And the Denver Center was kind of a closed shop. So there really wasn't any work at that time to be gotten there. And Arvada, they did, I don't know, 4 or 5 shows, I think 4 shows a year at that time. And I would go to auditions for things. I'd get called back, and it would usually be between me and somebody else, and then I never got it. So I was about ready to leave and go back to New York and thought, well, I gave up a $330 apartment in Midtown Manhattan that I had. Yes, I had gotten very lucky when I moved there. I found a place in Midtown, 5-floor walk-up, for $135 on 45th Street between 8th and 9th Avenue.
Man.
I know.
Man.
And the rent went, and probably would have been cheaper than $330 when I left, but I kept thinking I'd move. Not have to walk up all those flights. And I was thinking I would go back, even though I was going to have to hunt for a place to live and probably end up in Brooklyn or Queens. But then I decided to audition for one last show at Arvada, and it was Moon Over Buffalo. And I walked in thinking, I'll probably get called back, and then I won't get it. But it was Bev Newcomb came walking out into this, down the hallway. They have that what they call the green room, but it's just a big long hallway. Yeah. And I was sitting out there, and Bev walked in, and I had met her a couple of times. And as she walked in, she said, "Well, am I glad to see you?" And I thought, well, yeah, sure. But I ended up getting it and did that run. And Terry Dodd came to me after it was over and said, would you come and audition for the fall show there? And I said yes, and it was Picnic, and I got that. And so the work just began to start coming, and then I began directing. I did a bunch of directing at the Fine Arts Center in Colorado Springs, and then Arvada had me start doing a bit of it. So I ended up not going back.
Nice. That's awesome. Do you ever work at Germinal?
I didn't. I used to go and see things there. Okay. He used to do a lot of really good work.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I was wondering if you were one of the... I was talking with Eric Sandvold, backstage. One of my new favorite hobbies is the show comes to a close, and me and him will stick around after everyone's left and have an extra glass of tequila. Yeah. And we'll talk. And we were talking about the old Germinal space and all the photos that were on the wall. And for some reason, I had like in my head, like, oh, there's Billie's on the wall. Billie did a show there for sure.
No, he didn't do union stuff, and but I didn't live terribly far away from there. So, and Erica Barillo had become a very good friend, as had Deb Persoff, and they both worked there. And so if they were doing something, I always tried to get over and see whatever they were doing. In fact, I saw an extraordinary production that Erica did of, Eugene O'Neill. The name was there, and now the name it's that really long one. Oh, Long Day's Journey into Night. Yeah. And it was a really amazing 3 hour and 3 hour and 45 minutes piece that it was really incredibly good work. So I always was very impressed by Ed and what he created there.
Have you stayed union this whole time, or is there nice? What do you find? Is there a difference between what you've experienced in your union career as opposed to what you find your friends who aren't union do? Is there
just we get paid more money?
True that.
If it's that a lot of the theater companies now can do these small theater contracts, and it's not very much money. I mean, it's really a pitiful, poor amount of money. A lot of people do it strictly to get their weeks, but it's a small amount of money. But we always are getting paid. We will always get paid. Whereas if you work at some of the smaller venues, they will get a stipend, and that is and it's stipend in every sense of that word. These really extraordinarily talented people who work all day long, 8 hour day, 8 hours a day, 5 or 6 hour days a week, and then come out and spend their nights until 10 or 11 o'clock at night because they love doing it. But there's an enormous amount of talent in this town, both union and non-union.
Yeah.
And so I've never been one that thinks because you have a union card you're more talented than anybody else.
Yeah.
It's great for me because it gives me a pension, and so.
Yeah.
I know that I can count on it. And I've been lucky enough to work in almost every single theater in town because they've coughed up a few bucks to get a union contract.
Absolutely. We're talking about the relationships you had with some of the people that were in the community then. Like, have you noticed a change in the Denver theater community over the course of your time here? Has it gotten?
Yeah.
Is it?
It's
what
bigger. There's
bigger?
more people. They're better. People, young kids who are graduating from UNC, amazingly talented young people are staying. If they go to New York and spend a little time there or go to LA, they will more times than not end up coming back here. And so it's added to, it's given us a really juicy talent pool here.
Yeah.
And I still do directing, and I try to go see as much theater as I can to see what's out there, and I'm astonished at the talent that has hung around here, and that it's really grown a lot, and the number of theaters. When I first got here, there really were not a great many theaters, but now there's so many, and they survive. Many of them survived the pandemic.
Yeah.
When people thought, oh well, there won't be anything left after not being able to do work. Boy, people found a way to survive, and the theaters are opening and doing stuff and getting us all back to work. So
That's awesome.
I've noticed a great change.
You don't feel that the number of theaters in the community is cause an oversaturation?
I don't think so. I know that there's some people who've said that. And I don't feel that way because I love to go to theaters. So the more theaters, the happier I am.
Nice.
But they're struggling. They're struggling because we don't have newspapers anymore, really. We don't have reviewers that go see everything. So it makes it difficult for these theater companies who are on a shoestring, who do really, really good work, to get people in to see the shows because people don't know that it's happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something I've always thought every theater company should get together and figure out how they can make it happen, how they can help each other. Because if you help each other, you're helping your own theater as well.
Absolutely.
So, but I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just an actor.
Same.
Not a producer.
Trying to figure out how to get people to work together and have that be a success for long term in that regard of promoting these other theater companies that might not have the means to get noticed.
Yeah.
That is definitely a tough sell in certain areas. Do you feel like with the lack of having newspapers, has that been the biggest negative change that you've witnessed, or?
I mean, as far as theater
Yeah.
in town, I don't think it's the biggest negative change. I just think we televisions and people gaming, and there's so much to do that. It used to be that the theater was what you did on an evening, or you would go see a movie. But now people aren't even leaving their homes.
No, I hear that for sure. Awesome. Oh no, scary door slam in the back.
Yeah, let's wait a second and see if someone comes around the corner.
Hello. I heard voices. I got scared, Dan. All right, we're safe.
We're safe.
No
okay.
no one's coming to.
No one knows we snuck in here to do this.
That's
huh?
right. That's right.
All
Well,
right.
quick, Billy, give me your glass. I'll give you some more wine.
Wine? Well, I never drink wine.
Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry that I forced this on you. I apologize. A little bit. I don't know. At this stage, I'm curious. What is that ghost light you wish was left on for you? What's that piece of advice you wish you had when you got started that you'd hand off to the next generation, the people on the come up?
I think probably it would be, if you want to do this, if this is really, really what you want to do, I wish that somebody had given me the kind of knowledge about pictures and resumes, about how to put together a bunch of monologues, about what to expect if you go to, I mean, the only place you're going to have any success, or if you go to these really big cities, that's what you want to do for a living. And I literally went there to New York City with no knowledge of what I should do. I had a picture which still makes me giggle whenever I look at it. I look very serious in it. And I had, fortunately, people helped me find photographers that would give me my first headshots. And at the time, you had to have a voiceover tape if you wanted to do that kind of work, and to figure out how to do that and find the money to do it. But it's all the whole business of the business is one thing I didn't know anything about. Later on, I did actually write a program to give to students whenever I was asked to go to a university to talk to them about the things to expect after they graduated, if they were interested in continuing it. And now it's much better. Now universities are being a lot better about giving them that kind of information. But that's kind of what I wish. I was kind of a loner little girl that wanted something, and I was afraid somebody would tell me I couldn't do it, so I didn't really talk about it. So there isn't anything anyone could have helped me with because I didn't ask for help. Later, when I got to New York, I thought, I wish somebody had taught me that in college. But other than that, I have no regrets with my life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You still have, I mean, this sounds darker now that I'm about to say it, but there is still so much that you have yet to accomplish. So, but when you say I have no regrets up to this stage, like, yes, absolutely, that's great news.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if this happened to you, but a great many actors went through that whole year of pandemic and began to question whether they wanted to continue this, and I was one of them. I gave a lot of thought to, do I really want to do this anymore? And obviously, in 2021, I did 4 shows, so I guess I still wanted to.
Yeah, but I'm with you though. I shared that thought for quite a long time. I mean, 2020 was tough, and we did a lot of online Zoom plays, and those were enough to scratch an itch. And I definitely, since I was doing them, I defended them wildly. And then once they stopped happening with frequency, I was like, okay, yeah, I need the real thing, or I don't want to do this anymore. Like there's just something about being in the space with people
Yeah.
Even if there's like only 20 in the room of a 150 seat house, you're like,
that's why I've never wanted to do a one-woman show, because I got in the theater to be with people.
yeah.
I would be the only person there, me and the stage manager and whoever might be helping me change clothes. But it's really true.
Yeah.
I've done several two-handers, and I've thought, God, it's lonely.
I mean, two-hander can be fun, especially if they give me a long monologue and a spotlight. Thank you, Stephen Weitz.
Right, Dan?
Yeah. But what's that, Dan?
No, that. Yep.
No?
No. We're just winking at each other.
Oh. I don't understand why you could possibly be doing that. I'd like to take the time out of this Ghost Lights podcast to talk about me, Sam Gilstrap. Do you like me? Please tell me so. Oh,
it's a podcast. No one's going to answer.
No one's going to listen. Yeah.
I'm curious. You said that you thought about, is this something that you wanted to keep doing or not through the book? Like, what else would you do?
Well, then that was the question I asked myself. What would I do? I thought about, I've always wanted to have more time to travel, kick back, put my feet up, not actually worry about doing anything, not worrying about sitting down and memorizing 4,000 pages. Who knew old women in plays talk all the time?
All the time. God.
Oh, is it crazy? They're, quite often they're the leads.
Yeah.
And the younger people, who it's not difficult for them to learn all those lines, sit and listen to you do your monologues.
It's called graduation. They still got work to do.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I really didn't. I couldn't figure out what I would do, so I just decided that if people still asked me or I saw a project that I wanted to audition for, that I would keep doing it.
Well, you talked about briefly the memorizing 4,000 lines. How would you describe your process?
I do. What I do is I put all my cues on tape, and then I begin from the very beginning, and that's kind of where my character begins coming from. The first read, this is what it's about. Second read through, this is what it's about. I just heard that line. And I go through it, and so by the time I know the entire script, and I always learn my scripts before I ever step into a rehearsal room, because then I don't have to run home and try to learn lines late at night after a rehearsal, and I can play already. I can start playing with things. The director can start giving me direction other than walk here, walk there, do this, do that. So, and that's kind of what I do, and that's who the character starts there, begins there. I start to really feel like this is the way she walks, this is the way she does this, and then once I move into the rehearsal process and the other actors are there with me, then it fleshes out even more.
Was that how you always approached a new show, or is that something that did you feel like that was like an expectation?
No, I've always learned it first. I used to memorize lines. Like I could memorize an entire script in 2 days when I was younger, but now it takes 2 weeks. But it's always been the way I create a character, and that's probably because I didn't study acting early on. And I was my own teacher, and my own imagination took this person over. Yeah. I seldom would look into it for years. I would not look into a mirror ever while I was rehearsing, other than I would quickly comb my hair, or I would maybe put a little makeup on if I had an audition or something. But I wouldn't register anything because I didn't want to see that person, because that's not who I saw as that character.
Wow, that's so cool. I've never. Do you physically feel
different? Yeah. I will physically feel different, and because I play women, anywhere from 70 to 90. I started years ago. I started studying what they looked like, how do they lift themselves up when they have arthritis, and they do that. They put their hands down and so I began to, because I kind of knew that my career would blossom a lot more at the older I got, because I'd always played older women. So that's kind of the way I've always worked.
Wow, that's the first I've heard of that type of piece of the process, avoiding yourself to an extent so you could live as authentically in what you were already cultivating through the script and in your brain.
People would say to me, oh, you're doing something that's Irish now. I'd say, why? Well, because that's all you do is speak with that accent.
And drink Irish whiskey.
And drink Irish whiskey, yes.
Well, I just want to say, Billie, this has been a lot of fun. I'm so glad you were able to be with us today and to learn about your history. You are an important piece to, in my opinion, the Colorado theater community. You've been there since I first auditioned with my
Fly Open,
and it's she's always been doing work and always been at the helm of projects, and I've always looked up to you, and to have you here is a great honor. So thank you so much, Billie.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored.
No. Well, that's it for episode 88 of the Ghost Sides podcast. Our guest again was Billie McBride. Dan, do the damn thing. So this is the story I wanted to tell you. My second career audition was at the Arvada Center, and you were directing a play, a two-hander about two baseball coaches. I think Tom Barillo would be one of the parts. So I walk in. This is my second career audition, and I walk in, and it's going to be in a big theater, not like the Black Box, but it's like right when you walk in on the second floor or something. You have to go
the
back.
Great Big Theater, where they do the musicals.
Yeah, exactly. It was the ones with the musicals. And so I walk in there, and I introduce myself, and I begin my monologue, which is, I think, from, I can't remember right now. Anyway, I start talking, and the first two words come out, and I've already gone up. I've messed up. And so I stop, and I'm sorry, can I begin again? And you're like, absolutely, Sam, of course. And as I'm about ready to take a nice, deep, dramatic, deep breath and get right back into it again, I notice that you put your pen down. So, this is literally the second audition after I've graduated college. So I'm green as all hell. And I get through the monologue, and it's okay. And you're like, thank you very much, Sam. We'll be in touch. And I leave. And I get in my car, and I'm driving home, and I'm berating myself for stopping and starting over again. And then I get home, and I realize that my fly has been down the entire time. And so there I am, starting and stopping, doing this monologue in this big theater for Billie McBride, and I'm just out, just out. And I was like, oh. Multiple reasons as to why I probably will not hear back about this piece. Anyway,
I've always been fond of you, Sam.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You bring everything to the audition.
I do. I really do. Sometimes more than anyone ever would have asked for. Or less than, depending on your perspective of things. Oh, no. That was a penis joke. I'm sorry.
Right.
That was uncouth. Thank you.